Greetings, plant friends. All right, today I want to talk about a somewhat controversial topic, as usual. I want to talk about the usage of marijuana, of cannabis, and ayahuasca. I know that there are practitioners, people out there that strongly advocate that these two belong together. I'm not one of them. I'm just going on record of really, first of all, expressing the deepest, most heartfelt reverence to both of these powerhouse female plants. Cannabis and ayahuasca are both profoundly strong and really important medicines in our culture. But, having spent the last 15 years of my life really truly dedicated to understanding all of the complexities and nuances of Lady Ayahuasca, it is very, very apparent to me in my teaching as well as my own experience that marijuana is not a good plant to mix in the same sort of container with ayahuasca. So we'll talk about the reasons why, because there is a method to my madness. So, first of all, they don't even grow in the same continent, right? Ganja is not indigenous to the rainforest where ayahuasca is from. So that's the first hint. It's not always the case that two plants that are from different parts of the world don't go together, but it's one of the things that we can look at to see if they're a good match. I want to emphasize too, if you're curious of why all plants don't go together, that, it's kind of like all people don't go together. We are all complex consciousness, and we don't always vibrate and resonate with other people. And the same thing is true with our relationship with plants. Some are just incredible allies, some not so much. And the same is true for plants, because they have their own vibration, they have their own way of working, they even have what we would call their own personalities. So cannabis, Lady Ganja, actually, as she likes me to call her, she is, first of all, profoundly misunderstood and abused in our culture, but that's changing, thankfully. More and more people are becoming aware that she is sacred medicine, that she deserves to be used in that way, in a more ceremonial and reverent setting, rather than just getting high on your couch and watching television. Not necessarily the most sacred way to bond with her. So it's wonderful that she's having a rightfully deserved renaissance, and more people are waking up to working with ganja in a really kind of reverent way. But the way that she works is very much from shadow. How do I know that? Because she can literally take our pain. She's such incredible medicine if we're in physical pain, if we have a disease, and such that requires assistance in monitoring that pain. My personal experience with her is I sometimes have a pretty intense flare-up with sciatica, so I have issues with my back, and she's the first one that I turn to, whether it be a CBD patch or working with her and her pure medicine to ask her for help in relieving the pain, and most importantly, to understand why it's there to begin with, so that I can go about healing it. But sometimes it's so intense in terms of monitoring the pain that I just need her help for a timeout, some relief. And then we do shadow work together of identifying the core of the dis-ease. So she works from shadows because she can literally take our pain. Ayahuasca, on the other hand, is like the queen of illumination. She doesn't take away our pain. In fact, she quite often amplifies the experience of discomfort, physical pain, emotional trauma, etc. Because her way of working with us is to amplify and illuminate it so that we understand it more deeply, but to move it through our system. She's got that snake-like energy, as seen behind me, that helps to identify the core, the source of it, move it through us, let us experience the intensity of the energy, and then let it go. Be that through purging, crying, movement, or just the act of surrendering into it and integrating the experience that caused that pain. Ganja, as any of you who have worked with her know, she's entirely different. And so because of that, the two of them are just at odds in how they work together. And so if you try to put ganja and ayahuasca together in the same ceremonial context, the best analogy I can give is it's like talking to Buddha and Jesus about enlightenment, but they have very different language and very different ways of doing it. And we, as individuals, as humans, it's a tall order to be able to hold space in a really conscious and reverent way for those two entirely different yet equally sacred and potent consciousnesses telling us the story of who we are, or helping us to make sense of what we're working with. So they just kind of, it's like it can become a tug of war in terms of figuring out who to pay attention to. And since they work so differently, it becomes a conflict, essentially. Ganja, she's highly misunderstood, as I mentioned, in our culture, because, while she takes away pain, while she can help numb us, her superhero power is in teaching us how to work with it. But so if you've worked with ayahuasca, you know that intention is very important, but quite often intention, if you use the 80-20 rule with ayahuasca, it's 20% your intention and 80% her, of how she works and what she knows is necessary in order for us to activate and realize the questions that we're bringing to her. So she's got her own agenda. And if you've worked with her, you know how true that is. That said, she really honors what we're bringing, what we're coming with. Ganja, on the other hand, is typically the reverse. It's 80% you, or us as participants, 20% her. So for example, like if you work with her and you request that she help take away physical pain, she can do that, but she likely won't reveal the reason for it unless you ask. She's an incredibly patient plant, and she will reflect the truth of our unconsciousness, our desire to resist and hide, etc., for as long as we need it. Like she's so patient, she'll do it for lifetimes with us until we say, hey, can you help me with this? And then she opens up of like, I thought you'd never ask, She is just as powerful in her own way, Ganja, of expanding consciousness, of moving energy, of doing all of the things that ayahuasca is famous for. It's just that she really requires our conscious effort of asking her, of showing her respect, of even recognizing that she has the capacity to do these things. Because most people, it's changing, but most people in the past have used her just to check out. And she will do that all day long. But then there are ramifications to that. I mean, if you've ever had an abusive relationship with marijuana, you likely at some point experienced the karmic repercussions. For example, sometimes we start losing energy and motivation in our lives. Relationships fall apart, jobs fall apart. Just things start to unravel because we haven't been proactive and conscious about our lives and about our relationship with sacred plants. People don't typically do that with ayahuasca because she's so incredibly uncomfortable. And so, and because the lineage that she's from has perpetuated a deeper sense of working with her in ceremony. So ayahuasca is not abused in the same way that marijuana, that ganja is. And so it's just, my platform for all the plants is that we recognize that these are conscious, powerful beings that deserve our respect, and that we come to them with humility, with clear intentions, but intentions that are deeply felt. Not a laundry list of sitting on Santa Claus's lap of, will you please give me these things? But the vulnerability of saying, hey, Ganja, I'm in pain. I'm dealing with fear. Can you help me with this? If you do that, she gives you the keys to the kingdom. I mean, it's not necessarily easy, but it's effective. But I just want to emphasize that the two of them, in my humble opinion and experience, absolutely do not belong together. The last thing that I will mention that really puts a highlight on this point is I did work for a brief time, about a year, with a gentleman who was, a shaman of both Aya and Ganja. And he even told me, Ganja works in the darkness, Aya works in the light. And he would work with them just himself together at the same time in ceremony. And he didn't have very much respect for the idea of protection. And he didn't really revere the plants and ask them if this was okay. I know that in my experience with him, I heard from both of them that no, this doesn't work. And long story short, that gentleman is in prison for somewhat related reasons. And all that to say is, can I guarantee that the ramifications of his disrespect was the reason why he was put in jail? No, but not in a court of law necessarily, but in the spiritual sense, it's very clear that disrespecting these plants is just a bad idea. And if you're thinking about just kind of working with both of them together, I would really, really consider what your core motivations are. And most importantly, ask them. These are conscious, powerful, opinionated in plants, spirits. And if everybody has their own integrity with this. So if the plants give you a different message than they've given me, fantastic. But do ask and do the work to make sure that the results that you create in doing any of this work is in alignment with what feels like you're asking for. And if there are things that are not in alignment, then do the work of deciphering what is being communicated. But thank you for tuning in and listening to why it is my professional opinion that ganja and ayahuasca are to be experienced in separate containers. So, and in fact, when people work with me with ayahuasca, if they don't have a frequent relationship with her, I ask for 5 days a week of abstaining from marijuana. And if they do have, an addictive or habitual relationship with her, it's 10 days, 2 weeks, all the way up to a month, just depending on how sticky. Because marijuana ganja, is a very sticky plant. She stays in our system for a very long time. And it's just an energy that does not go well with ayahuasca ceremonies. So it's good to show them respect of doing the work, to focus on which one it is that you're leaning into as a teacher in that time. If you have comments, disagreements, any of it, I welcome it. Please feel free to comment below. Visit my website, afterlife.coach, or email me at kat@afterlife.coach. I wish you pleasant, enlightening, safe, and healing journeys, and I thank you for your time. Much, much love.